And it looks like we have a show, man. We are live. You guys already know it's your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid, and I'm rocking out with the legend. Yeah, I'm gonna throw that status on my man, Mr. Jeff Iafrate, aka Hollywood. You guys know this has been a long time coming, man.
Yeah, and of course, Rod's ducking me, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I miss Rod. I do. Rod, if you're listening, I will promise I will be back to doing appearances. I miss talking to you and Rod. I know me and you talk all the time.
Yeah.
Haven't seen Rod in a minute. We got to have another dinner, man. It's always fun. But no, I appreciate coming back on. I do. I like coming on. I like talking Pistons. I know at least having a show, it's hard to talk Pistons because you gotta give the people what they want, and what the Pistons having 2 wins and on a 24-game losing streak.
There's not a lot of anything that the people can want right now.
A whole lot of nothing to discuss. It's been frustrating. I've sympathized with Pistons fans. I'm a huge Pistons fan. If you guys have been kind of paying attention to my career, it seems like I've been always just defending them and speaking in high regards to them, just defending them, trying to make sense of what's going on. I can't make sense of what's going on this year. It's absolutely disgusting. And if you lose that many games in a row, I think the next closest losing streak, I could be wrong, Portland might have won a game, but it was like they've lost 7 or 8. That's the next closest losing streak.
Yeah, because the Spurs got off their snide. They finally won a game to end their 20-game losing streak.
So, it's been frustrating, and I get why people would have a problem with Troy Weaver because of the current roster construction. I understand that. Now, me and you are a little different. We've tried to see the big picture of this whole thing, which is hard to do. It is hard to do, and you can't defend a 2-win team. But you know what? Cade Cunningham, he's still a damn good player. And you like a handful of players they have. I'm trying to look at some of the positives here. Jalen Duren, who went down with an ankle injury, you like him, right? Jaden Ivey, who got to start against the Hawks the other night, I like him, even though it hasn't been really maybe the type of Jaden Ivey you were expected to see in terms of minutes and the type of role he'd have. But still, Sar Thompson I like. So there's pieces you like, Kool-Aid. It's just for it all coming together, they're at the end of the day, they're 21, 22 years old. It's hard to win the NBA, and you see that on full display.
Man.
And it's not just hard. It seems like it's nearly impossible for these guys to win at this point.
Yeah,
it's bad.
It's working against them in 2 different ways. At that one, they're young and they're still trying to learn how to win. But you hear teams saying, we don't want to be the team that they actually break their streak against. So where normally these teams might be able to sneak up and pop a team and get a win, now all of a sudden it's like every night you're getting the opposing team's best as if you're on a championship run, but it's the opposite. Nobody wants to be the team that lost to these Detroit Pistons right now, who are right now on a historically bad pace. And I'm glad that you started it off the way that you did, because there's not a lot to talk about the product on the floor except for save a few players that we like. And it's kind of influencing some more of what I wanted to talk about. Nuss, where do we kind of decline from what the organization has done to this point? Because there is some things to like. This isn't a situation where all hope is lost. Like, okay, they cashed on Josh Smith. Where do you go from here? Are they maxed out on Drummond and Blake Griffin? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, they're not stuck. I think that's the right thing to say. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's bad, but they're not stuck. Like that's the key thing. Stuck meaning you got no money to spend, you got no future, and you're screwed. We've been there before as Pistons fans. I don't think they're stuck. And I know it's probably like, Jeff, we don't want to hear that ish. They have 2 wins. Who cares? And I get that. But I think that's the bigger thing to take away is unlike signing guys that don't deserve it or signing guys to maybe amounts they don't deserve, they're not stuck. There is a way out now. The question is how do they get out of this mess? We can make a whole hour podcast on probably just that. To be honest with you, we could just talk about that for an hour.
We could. And I want to get there eventually, but I do want to make a distinction, at least for this podcast, for this platform. And I had a solo pod that I did about, maybe about a month and a half ago, where I was just straight up real with the people. And I let them know, like, I get it. And I even used you in that pod because I started to recognize and realize for people that come from my generation, we've seen several eras of basketball, including I got to see distinctly the 2004 going to work Detroit Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
For someone like you, for people like Griff, for people like Brady, these people are still waiting for that moment. When I go to the game and I cover these games now and I'm seeing, fans in the building and it's like they're cheering for the other team, I just didn't get that because I grew up in an era where the Pistons were good. Even when they weren't championship level, they were still decent.
Mhm.
You know, and I see even fans today who they really, really, really hang on to that Blake Griffin year. And now I'm starting to understand just why when I start to put together all of the perspective. It's just like, man, these Pistons have been down bad for a long, long time. Even the years where it looked mid, there was still no hope. You know, we saw what Chauncey traded for AI, and they followed that up by signing Charlie Villanueva and Ben Gordon. I'm talking about two existences that should have never found their way into a Pistons uniform. And now this was supposed to be what set all of the previous decade before it right. And instead, after 4 years, to be honest and to be fair, fans are sitting here staring at effectively like an empty cavern, bro.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a tough pill to swallow, both as a Pistons fan and as somebody who has to cover this team nightly. Because one of the things that Rod and I talked about at the start of this pod was that maybe I'll get an opportunity to cover something he never did, and that's winning Pistons basketball.
Right.
But now we're going on several beat writers who've been through and been out, several beat reporters who've been through and been out, and we still don't have any real hopeful Pistons basketball. And I do believe that some of the things that Troy Weaver has done has led directly to this. So he's not absolved from any type of blame or guilt or any of that type of stuff.
No matter how much we like what he's done at times. There's things we like, but you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. And I think that the biggest thing is roster construction. We talked about the incremental moves. I do believe that the big moves are on the way, as he stated. And I do believe that he has the cachet and the capital and the connections to be able to make that happen.
Yep.
But in terms of making sure that this team right now can get that nasty taste of losing out of their mouths and truly be able to compete, we don't want to see, well, they were in the game, but they still only got 2 wins. That's not the level of competition that's going to help this team, because right now they're trying to not fight for wins, but they're trying to fight to keep their head from hanging low right now, hanging down after each one of these kind of demoralizing losses. And it's tough to see, especially with Cade Cunningham. Like, it's good to see him on his uptick. I know over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 games, his true shooting is going up, his turnovers are going down, and you can see it's coinciding with the return of Bojan Bogdanovic. It helps to be able to have somebody else on that court who can shoulder not just like shooting and spreading the court for him, but also some ball handling duties and be a big time scorer. But one of the things I wanted Troy Weaver to do heading into this season was to be able to finally fix this aspect of injury plague that has just continued to decimate this team. Last season, the whole notion was, hey, look, and he said it himself, that year's on him, but that's really a referendum year of just kind of nothingness. It was an injury year. You don't have Cade. We lost Bojan. We lost Stu. Jalen Duren missed some time. Alec Burks missed some time, yada, yada, yada. And we said we can't come into this season where they're looking to depend on taking the next kind of incremental steps and have another injury-plagued year. And ultimately, shout out Ryan, man. Ryan Lentz of the Genius Room, him and Noah back there cooking up all of the dope graphics and thumbnails you see on Woodward. But you come into this season and here it goes again. I don't even know what type of true assessment you're able to even do with this squad beyond the fact that you can kind of see what Cade Cunningham might need a little bit more around him. But as it relates to things that I absolutely disagree with in terms of Troy Weaver, this team being injury plagued again is one that ultimately, to this point in the season now, is grinding my gears. Like, bro, Monty Morris still hasn't played. And you talk about a piece that I truly believe can make a difference for this squad, because you need a surefire, kind of mature, competent ball handler next to Cade Cunningham. Maybe not to do 100% of the point guard duties, but somebody that can go and split those duties and get Cade Cunningham in his kind of better role. And that's off ball, where he's able to knock down threes, where he's able to create from the wing. And that thing has just bothered me, bro. It really has.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest questions on this team currently, Brandon, is who's the number 2? There's Cade Cunningham. He's the franchise player. And me, Sean, and Troy talked about this on From Half Court. But the thing for Troy to do is you have to find a co-star with Cade, unless somebody arises and takes that spot, which no one's done it yet. There's players you like, a Jalen Duren. I don't think he'll be a number 2. I think he'll be a starting center, a damn good player on a team that I think it will win games. Asar Thompson will be a great piece as well. Who knows his potential, but I'm talking about a guy that can come in, get you 20 points per game, and be the guy second on your team in shots taken, and a guy that Cade can rely on to kind of alleviate some pressure from him. He just doesn't have that. Defenses night in and night out know exactly what to do with the Pistons. They know exactly what to do. And Monty's been talking about the growth of Cade, having to deal with that, being double teamed, him having to respond to that and working through it, because again, they don't want Cade to get his. Everyone else can have theirs. It's about Cade Cunningham. And I think the biggest thing for this deadline and offseason for Troy Weaver, in which I believe is the most important trade deadline and offseason of Troy's career, and it could dictate his career. It's the most
important one for the Pistons in the last almost 15 years.
And I agree with that. They have to go out and get somebody. Now, I don't know if that's OG Anunoby. I don't know if that's Jeremy Grant. I don't know if that's. I know for a fact it's not Tobias Harris. But no, it's not a shade. But he ain't coming in and being. He'd be a good piece, but he's not a guy you're going to come in and be like, all right, Tobias.
You're talking about what Troy Weaver said he's aiming to do, and that's making a splash. And absolutely. I'm glad that you defined it
like a Pascal Siakam. That type of move. Somebody that can come in and be the second or first leading scorer on your basketball team. They don't have that. They need to find that. Bojan came back and he's already second. And he's 34, 35 years old. Yeah. That shouldn't happen.
And if he's on the squad even beyond this year, he just needs to be a piece as well.
Absolutely.
He's not
he needs to be one of their best he is, but he needs to be the fish on the bait on the hook for a big fish. He needs to be the bait. He needs to be the first starting piece of any big deal, to me.
Yeah.
For Bojan. He needs to be involved in a trade.
He does.
Somehow.
And I don't want to see him be traded for just a piece. If he's traded for just a piece, then I am hoping that it's like several pieces. You know what I mean? Several rotation guys, because the Pistons have a sore lack of NBA talent. They're relying right now on 8, and you guys have heard me say this before, 8 rookie contract players right now. And that's just, and then Stewart is kind of, you could lump him in there realistically. He just got his deal. That would be 9. But in terms of just flat contracts, you got 8 of those guys in your regular rotation. And some of the vets that we thought we could depend on, like Alec Burks, it's like I like him, but he's taken some steps back this year as well.
Coming back from that injury too, he hasn't really looked quite the Alec Burks of last year.
No,
he hasn't. I still like him, but you're right. They just, where are they getting the production from is probably the question. And you get Isaiah Stewart, who I was told stinks.
I was about to talk about him again.
And now every contending team wants him. That's interesting how that works. But yeah, they just don't have that number two piece, or hell, even a number one. I mean, they have a number one, but to go get another number one. And that's the biggest thing, and that's the toughest part to have this conversation. And that's why I said you could spend an hour on this, because where are you getting it at? I don't know.
It's
who's out there. OG Anunoby, I think he'd be a great addition.
Yeah, he probably won't come into the offseason though.
But that's true. But is he a number 2 on a championship team though? I don't know. I don't know. He'd be a damn good piece, but still, they're missing somebody either has to take a big jump, or they got to make a big deal, a big splash deal to go get somebody.
Yeah, I know Rod, he's been saying for about a month and a half now, go get Zach LaVine, because you need that guy who can he said, fit be darned, bro. Go get him, because you need a guy who you can put the ball in his hands and he can go out there on any given night and get you 30. Not even just
that's what
20.
They need.
They need somebody like that, because that's the type of guy who takes all the attention away from Cade Cunningham. With a guy like OG, and I'm going to come back to the Stewart comments, but with a guy like OG, this thing has gotten so bad that the Pistons can't even give themselves or afford themselves the opportunity realistically to even go and say, you know what, we can't take that risk. They have to actually take that risk at this point. When you talk about the free agents of this coming class, obviously the Pistons are going to be very, very active in the acquisition market. But the best way for them to maximize everything, and kind of what we've been calling the most pivotal offseason in Troy Weaver and really the Pistons history in a long time, in like the last 10, 15 years, they kind of have to go out there and cash out on an OG Anunoby. They can't even afford to not. Now, does that mean that they also can't go out there and make another splash, or shouldn't? No. They need at least 2 or 3 guys, and one of those guys has to pan out to be, as you called it, a number 1 or a number 2 type, even if that's not OG Anunoby. Now, I know that the Pistons are linked to several different names. Shout out James Edwards of The Athletic. He kind of confirmed some things that you guys have heard us banter about on this show. And OG is one of those names. Tobias is one of those names that they're looking at. But there are some other names that I've heard as well. DeMar DeRozan. I've heard Pascal Siakam. You'll know some of these guys. They're kind of linked to Dwayne Casey, who is still with the organization. And I got to talk to him at You guys will see my little Toys for Top pin here.
Look at that.
You know, I got to talk to him at the toy drive, man. And I get it. A lot of people right now, the only kind of comment they have on anything charitable right now is sell the team. I'm not even going to be mad at you guys right now, as long as you don't say move the team. But
yeah,
I got to talk
that
to
take exists. I mean, for real, that take actually exists. That's not a joke. That's an actual take.
I can't believe that. And I'll leave that there. But Dwayne Casey, man, got to talk to him for a while. And every time I talk to him, it's kind of a wealth of information. First, he cares about people. He really does. And most of the conversations about my family and such and how we're doing.
Right.
But he does update me from time to time on what he's doing. When he first went to the front office, his job was player scouting because we didn't have a coach at that point in time. And you had to go into this draft prepared. So he was doing prospect scouting of young players and G League guys. Now his role has kind of shifted as the Detroit Pistons are looking towards what players are going to acquire, what players are going to sign, to NBA player scouting as well. You know, and talking to some of the scouts that do go to the games at LCA, I do know that the Pistons are looking, man, all over. And that's what kind of brings me back around to Isaiah Stewart. I don't believe that Isaiah Stewart is a bad player. I don't believe that he's a starting four. I think he's a really, really good piece to have into a really good team, to just a decent team. I believe that he plays a very, very pivotal role. We saw a guy like Corliss Williamson on the offensive side of things come to this Detroit Pistons team to go on to work Pistons off the bench and was able to be somebody that they were able to depend on. You knew when he comes into the game what he's going to do. And I think with Isaiah Stewart, going to a kind of a championship caliber or playoff contending team would honestly do good for him, and it would do good for the Pistons as well, because those teams have pieces, generally younger guys or kind of just some pieces that you can get back in return who might be at not the end of that bench, but somewhere lower in that rotation. Shout out to D-Mac. Hey, and he's giving us the one finger salute. Shout out D-Mac. What you got, brother?
We're going to set the record, but for most losses, but when does it stop?
Ooh.
I hope it doesn't. Honestly, D-Mac.
He wants 2-80.
Just be
D-Mac.
2-80 at this point. I think I'm here for the
Four-time Stanley
storyline.
Cup
Yeah,
champion.
okay. D-Mac's in.
You're in for 2.
I'm here for
2-80?
interesting, D-Mac. I like interesting. 2-80 is interesting.
I mean, if we're going to do it, we might as well.
Fuck it.
Might as well set it, man.
Yeah.
Be in the record book.
That's what I'm saying.
The right way.
Yeah. Fuck 80-2. Be 2-80. Just as exciting, right?
Oh, man.
I just peeked my head in to see the demeanor of the Pistons boys, and you found your level. Can we just say that? Like all that, because it's not, and I think Kool-Aid said it best on Pistons Twitter, right? You can't come in there like it monitors itself.
Yeah, it does.
How bad it is or whatever like this, but everybody else is like, let's keep bailing water, boys.
Yep, we keep bailing water.
Everyone's losing their mind, and it's just sort of like, okay.
It's like water's coming in the ship, and we're just trying to get it out. We're just keeps coming in. We just keep trying to get the water out. That's all it is.
We might be water until we hit land.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping is that this is the Lions 3 and kind of 13 season before things started to really take off.
Can't we just say 0 and whatever?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Now you're talking 0-16, baby.
That team, if they would have let them continue to play games, how many games would they have lost? Like 24.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, yeah.
So, at least it's nice to see Cade.
Yeah,
I mean, there are some things, and that's all you got to do is like. So for the people that stick around, just try to pull the positives. We all know that.
Yep,
absolutely.
Yip.
It'd be nice if more two guys could.
It'd be nice.
That's what he was saying, bro.
It'd be nice. Yeah, that's where they're at.
All right, good. You guys, no suicide watch on Christmas.
No,
D-Mac's coming in the
salute
chat.
to D-Mac.
That was HR. Sorry, guys, for late.
The head of HR here at Woodward Sports.
Checking on the
D-Mac.
mental health of Pistons fans. I appreciate you back.
And I love it. But it's like,
Man of the people.
with the moves that they potentially can make at this deadline, obviously Isaiah Stewart is going to be one of those pieces. I think that the Pistons can afford to move on from that.
I
won't
wonder
necessarily
though,
crater things
for
them.
sorry to interrupt you. For a contender team though,
Yeah.
for a contending team, I wonder what pieces they'd sacrifice to give up if they still want to compete for a championship. Like what big piece are they moving?
Yeah, because I don't want it to be just for a draft pick. I mean, I get it. A draft pick helps.
I want a dude.
You gotta have a dude. And
like if the Maverick, for example, let's pull that a scenario. The Mavericks were to be like, hey, I want Isaiah Stewart. What are you giving up? Grant Williams and Josh Green? Which it's like, I'm not saying Grant's a bad player. We talked about Grant this offseason, but really, does that move the needle? No.
It doesn't move the needle.
Unless Isaiah Stewart's packaged, unless he's packaged to go get a player that I could sign up for or I'll sign on for, then I'm cool with that. But
yeah,
I don't see that benefiting the Pistons.
They're gonna have to look at a bunch of these kind of disgruntled stars. They're gonna have to look at these disgruntled teams that had certain expectations. I don't think that it's even with the playoff contenders that the Pistons should even be looking to try and make a deal unless it's realistically for draft picks. Because what else are they going to give up that's going to disrupt their team's ability to be able to make a run in the playoffs?
That's fair.
And so shout out to Spinny, man. Woodward heavyweights, man. Spinmo. And he's gonna be jumping on the Big D Energy soon here too, man.
Yeah, actually, Mike just texted me. Let me see what he said.
Yeah. But it's like
might be late for Big D. Damn it, Mike. Gentry. Might need to fill in for him on sound. But regardless, keep going.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the Pistons are gonna have to be looking at teams like the Bulls. They're gonna have to be looking at teams like the Pelicans. They're gonna have to be looking at some of these other teams that are looking to take a step forward in the next year, and they got some contracts they want to get off their books. The thing with Isaiah Stewart, I know a lot of people hate the money he was signed for, but realistically, when you look at it, he was signed for backup big money. It does play better for the Pistons that he's under this type of a deal to be able to contribute to either a playoff contending team or a team that's looking to get back there quickly. And they know that they can rely on him for 25 minutes a night minimum to go out there and give you maximum effort every single night, especially if you got some other bigs that can handle some of the other types of matchups that Stewart has kind of struggled with. So in terms of what the Pistons can do from here, Stewart is going to be one of those prime guys. Now, this is something I wanted to talk to you about because I love Jaden Ivey. I know that this hasn't been the sophomore season that people have expected or even wanted, whether it's what they believe Monty Williams has done to kind of stifle some things, or whether it's what they believe Jaden Ivey hasn't done to make sure that his development can step forward. How do you feel, though, about Jaden Ivey being probably the Pistons' best young asset that would be up for trade? Because we could assume safely that Cade and Duren are probably their untouchables. Do you believe that Jaden Ivey should be in that boat as well?
No, I don't think so. I like Ivey too. And I have my philosophy on the draft is you take the best player. You don't look for best fit, especially when you stink. So, and that's what me and Easy would argue about with him. And he liked Benedict, he liked Mathurin. I liked Ivey because I thought Ivey could be a better player long term. I wasn't looking at, well, this guy fits with it. No, I don't give a shit. If you win 18 games, give me the best player. But you're seeing it now. It just seems like, especially now, Ivey last year having a team where it was his show.
Yeah, his.
And then the previous year it was Cade's show. And then now you just kind of throw those two together this year and say, figure it out. Obviously, they're having a hard time doing that.
With a brand new coach.
With a brand new coach and a brand new system. And, and I get it. And it's a fresh start for Monty to get to know all these guys. It's not like Dwayne already had a relationship with Ivey and kind of knew what he liked to do. This is brand new for everybody. I'm a little different though, Brandon. If you have 2 wins on the season, why can't Ivey just start the rest of the year?
Golly, bro.
I don't understand what difference it makes.
That's another.
You've been taking them out of taking them in and out of the starting lineup, dude. They played arguably one of their best games against the Hawks. Now, early they struggled defensively. I gave because the first quarter was rough. But
I don't even care about his defensive struggles anymore, bro. Let that man play.
Just start him and see how. Just let it play out. The whole thing with he's in the starting lineup, he's out the starting lineup. He's in the starting lineup, and then he's on the bench. He plays 10 minutes, but then he plays 15 minutes, then he plays 25 minutes. That's probably the most frustrating thing about this Ivey thing. And I love Monty. I'm not trying to question his coaching ability, but I will question that. That is a little confusing.
I think it's fair. Like I told you, man, nothing's off limits as it relates to Monty Williams. I believe that he's a great spirit. I think that in terms of if you're going to go through a season like this, Spinny got heat on his feet, bro.
He always does.
I'm going to take a picture of that later.
He always does.
But it's like in terms of a coach who I think is going to be the right temperament for what they're going through, I think he's good for that.
He fits, yep.
But in terms of some of the things he's tried to do to come in and put his stamp on the team right away, I feel like that Jaden Ivey one, if it wasn't clear that it might have been a miss early, when you're 2 in whatever you are right now, you're on this type of a losing streak, You got to kind of go back to what at least was supposed to be part of the plan, in my opinion. I know some people, they believe that Monty Williams is kind of disrupting what the restore was supposed to be, because one of the things we talked about when they got Ivy was the fact that Cade Cunningham was going to be attracting double teams out the wazoo, and that we thought Ivy would be that guy who could help to alleviate that pressure.
He could penetrate.
Yeah,
he's a better shooter than people give him credit for.
Yeah, and that's the type of stuff that I want to be able to see the Pistons approach, man. Like, I don't think that they're in a position anymore to try and play a style of basketball that the coach is trying to institute. You're losing. There's nothing else to do anymore. And that's why I say I want to be able to talk about a few of these things that, you know, in terms of where I and where Jeff might differentiate from what the organization or what the team is actually putting forth. Let that man play, bro.
Yep.
Like there's nothing else left to realistically kind of spin your wheels about. I don't care about where his defense is. I don't care about what they think he does or doesn't know as a point guard or per se.
Right.
You got your ball handlers. You got Cade Cunningham on the court. You got Bojan Bogdanovic back. I think that this team is even more so than to start the year. I think it's even more so in a position to be able to have an Ivy in the lineup right now. And and let them get some type of chemistry. See what you have.
Yeah,
because the next moves, man, if you go and you trade an Ivy before you absolutely know what he and Cade aren't, I think that you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I think we're past the like Ivy has to earn it thing. Like you won 2 games, dude. No one on this team has earned anything. Like
No.
just start Ivy. I mean, who gives a shit? At least you allow those two to play together consistently. I think it hurts to the development if he's starting and then Killian starting, and then 10 games later he's back, and then Killian gets hurt, or excuse me, someone gets hurt, and then Ivy's out. Now Killian's back in. It's like, dude, just put together a lineup and just let it rock.
Let it rock.
And if you lose, 70 games, you lose 70 games. You're probably going to lose 70 games no matter what lineup you put out there. So, yeah, that's probably been the most frustrating thing with the Ivy stuff. He's not absolved from any blame. I'm not saying that, but him not being in the lineup, despite they've run a 24-game losing streak, and when he just got in the lineup recently, they've played better. Not great defensively, but like you said, who gives a damn? Just put him out there.
And the absolve from blame part, I almost do absolve them. There are young players who haven't even been able to make a mistake. He's been one of the young players that hasn't even got the opportunity to go out there and realistically learn on the floor.
But then you got Livers, and by the way, like Livers, but he's playing 20 minutes a night, shooting 29% from the field.
Gosh,
like, what are we doing?
Bro.
Has he earned it?
God, that's what I'm talking about, man.
Like what are we doing?
Even defensively, there are spots where it's like, cool. But in terms of what Ivy can bring offensively versus what Livers can bring defensively, I prefer what Ivy can bring offensively over whatever Livers is trying to do right now. And these are players that realistically, as young guys, I'm like, hey, listen, give them some time to work it out. But they don't even have the proper vets right now to look up to or to learn from or to hear from at all right now on this roster, man.
Right.
What I do want to ask you is this. Some of the names that we have talked about in terms of trying to see this team forward, you know how I feel. Mr. Jeremy Grant is somebody that I believe this Pistons team needs to actually sell completely out for again. I know it's going to be a tall task. I know it's going to be an expensive ask, but I do believe that they have somewhat the capability to be able to trade for him, as well as to be able to provide Portland with some type of relief, because I know they were looking potentially with some rumors during the summer that they might look to trade him as well, because Jeremy Grant had actually requested after Dame Lillard had requested his trade, because Jeremy Grant thought he was signing up for something a little bit different. Now it's Jeremy Grant and a young Portland team, and I know that he was fond. He liked Detroit here, man, and that's where, when I'm looking at what the Pistons can do between now and this offseason, is where I'm hoping they can go out there and swing something for, I don't know how possible or plausible it is for them to go out there and get a Levine. Like, I don't even see the Bulls necessarily trading within the division.
Yep.
But if they could walk away with a couple players like that, do you think that puts the Pistons in some type of like riding the ship at all? Or do you believe that it's still going to take a few years for this team to really be able to see some semblance of whatever they could be?
I think it's going to take a few years regardless. I do think Jeremy Grant, though, gives you more wins. I'll tell you that. Now, we've seen the Cade and Jeremy Grant kind of thing play out. They were a little around 500 after the deadline, his rookie year. But regardless, you need more than a Jeremy Grant. Like we also acknowledge that you need a Jeremy Grant. You need Cade to grow into. You need Cade to keep
forward.
Yep, you need Jeremy Grant. You need Cade to keep growing into a superstar. You need Duren to take the next step. And then if you have Ivy coming along, then yeah, we can start talking about this thing getting on track. But Jeremy Grant alone won't get this team into the playoffs. But man, he'd help. Anybody would. I think you could at this point in your life, Kool-Aid, if you went out there and just gave him a couple minutes a night, I think you'd help. It's that bad.
Hey, look, man, I would hustle a little bit. I can hit a 3.
Yeah, you could hit a 3, open jumper.
I could do that.
Hey, Paul Pierce said he can get 20. I think you can get 10.
I think I could play the Monte Morris role right now.
Yeah. But that's how bad it is. So yes, he would help, but to the extent, more wins, yes, but they need more than just Jeremy Grant. Kool-Aid, I believe that.
Yeah, a lot more. And look, I need you guys to put in the comments as well. What do you believe fixes this team, man? I want to hear that in the comments. What do you guys think that this Pistons team needs to do right now? I know that a lot of people are down and out on Troy Weaver right now. I do believe that the prospects moving forward, and the organization has kind of already put out there several times. Amari Sankofa, the Detroit Free Press, has kind of covered this thing closely to the vest. He does have some sources, so you can trust what he's stating. And that's right now, this organization is moving forward with Troy Weaver. They're going to move forward with his vision. And what I'm hoping is that he's the cook that gets to actually make the meal. We know that in the past, there's been some names like Arn Tellem, Ed Stefanski, who have kind of perked around with some of these other moves and some of these other deals, including Tom Gores with the hiring of Monty Williams. I'm hoping that from this point forward, this can be something that between Troy Weaver and Monty Williams, that they can actually make work, that they can be the ones to go out there, craft the rest of this team around what Monty Williams needs going forward.
Yep.
When I look at around the league in terms of who else they would go to bring in, I don't think that this situation is as dire or as bad as it looked before Troy Weaver was here, because being able to get a GM to commit to what the roster mess was, what the financial books were, it was all a mess. The dead money still on the books and whatnot. It was going to be difficult to get somebody in here. I don't think it's going to be that difficult because, like we started the show with, there's some positives here with some of the young players, no long-term money, no dead money on the books like that, massive cap space. I just don't know if there's a GM out there who knows what to do with this. And so I do believe the Pistons, in terms of some of the pressure and some of the other chefs in the kitchen that they've had kind of going on, that mentality going on, I do believe that they want to be fair to Troy Weaver and give him the opportunity to kind of cook by himself and see what he comes up with. And I do believe that he has the basketball acumen and the connections and the relationships with direct players, man, to be able to cook something up between now, this trade deadline, and the draft and free agency.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Now, I want to say, number one, it's been fun. I appreciate you having me on here. I got to come on here more often. We got to get Rod back on here. We'll have the trio back talking Pistons. But I'll tell you what, my guy, Troy Weaver, that supper, that dinner, it's due at 6 o'clock. It's about 4:30. All right, if we're doing like an analogy here.
Cook, man.
You got about an hour and a half till supper's ready. And Troy Weaver, that you and your team of chefs better have a gourmet meal ready, because if not, you're going to have a lot of hungry, pissed off people.
Rightfully pissed off people.
Rightfully pissed off people. So we'll see.
I told people this, man, before we close. Like I told people, this to me has always been about the 4 to 5 year rebuild window. And we've covered that this entire time. From our perspective, it's always been about the 4 to 5 years. Even when he started to sign the extensions for Bojan and Bagley and all that, we continue to tell you guys, at least from our perspective, everything that we know as a credential coverage, the thing that we want to be able to bring is kind of ample and truthful and honest reporting in terms of what the organization is saying. So there are no surprises. The things that we've tried to state from a reporting standpoint, those things have been the ones that have kind of come to fruition, rather than the people who, and I respect all other coverage out there, but their coverage might not be as connected to what the organization is saying. Then we try to give our opinions and our analysis on it. And for me personally, knowing from the beginning that this thing was a 4 to 5 year rebuild, similar to the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons, it took them 4 to 5 seasons to figure things out. 2 or 3 of those with Isaiah Thomas. And I think that Cade Cunningham is kind of going through that too. I mean, that team won 16 games, bro.
Yeah, and I want to speak on that too for you, because again, you're among the same group. You got James Edwards, Omari, Sean now getting more involved. Shout out to Sean as well.
Half court.
Rod, like all these guys that have to their job is to report on what's happening and report what they're being told. Pistons fans got to chill on those guys, man. I see on Twitter, these guys are getting attacked for just reporting news. Like, just chill out.
Yeah.
Chill on the media.
Don't even agree with all of it.
Yeah, like the media, they're not trying to feed you bullshit. They're just feeding you what they know. So again, they have to walk a very fine line. So again, I appreciate you, Kool-Aid. You're my right-hand man for Piston stuff. And to all the people out there, just relax. All right. Take your frustrations out on people, maybe other Pistons fans. Like the guys that report the news, they have nothing, they can't control anything that's going on. So chill on the beat reporters, man. Yep. They're good people.
But if he does strike out between now and this free agency, I have told people that would be Troy failing his own plan. That would be Troy failing what's been reported 7 days before free agency. He stated he is making a splash. He did state he wanted to see what this young team could do with Monty.
Right.
He did state that he didn't want to sign or bring anybody in here that would have blocked Asar or any of these young players. And that's kind of what is kind of ill-fitting about the whole Jaden Ivey thing. It's like, but the coach is blocking them right now. But we will see what's going on. But I can promise you all this. In terms of what I initially signed up for, in terms of being able to cover this thing for you, at least this portion of the rebuild, we're coming to the close of that window. And if it does not work out, I promise you guys, as also a writer and a reporter on this kind of beat, to be able to try and hold that organization accountable to that, to be able to ask the specific questions of where's the splash at. You stated that this was what was going to be done for this squad to move them forward, and you didn't come through on that. So I assure you guys from that standpoint, those are going to be the next questions. We get to talk to Troy directly before and after the draft, as well as right before the free agency. And I'm telling you guys, those questions are going to come. If I get another opportunity to talk to him before that, I'm telling you guys, I'm going to ask him, Troy, do you have the recipe to move this team aptly forward? That's going to be one of the questions that I can ask him right away, because I'm not going to leave you guys just kind of hanging out there. Trust me, there's nothing. Jeff will tell you there's not something to protect with the organization in terms of going and trying to ask any softball questions or anything. I've asked about Jaden Ivey. We asked about his minutes, his time. We asked about some of the coaching kind of decisions that have just not made sense. I've asked about Isaiah Stewart starting versus coming off the bench. We've asked some of these questions, man. Shout out to Mike Curtis as well of the Detroit News.
No, actually, that's another guy I left out. Mike's the
man. He's asked straight up about Killian. One of them was just
what a dog.
He was, Mike was like, he started talking, and then you could tell the only way to get the question out was just like, all right, why is he still starting? And all of us in the room was like, all right, Mike, all right. And Monty has his reasons for it.
What do you say? That's a great question. By
Monty,
guys got nuts.
Yeah, this probably be the last statement, but Monty effectively stated it was for the way that Killian effectively turns the ball over the least on the team, can get the turnover, can get the assist numbers, and plays good defense. And it's going to be the same rhetoric over and over and over again.
Now that's 2 wins right there. Congratulations. 2 wins.
Well, look, Mr. Iafrate, a.k.a. Hollywood, you guys know he was airlifted here in the studio. The ceiling just opened up, and he was like, zzz.
Yeah, I actually, yep. Same private. Me and Tom Gores actually took the same private jet. I just got off a little earlier, so I'm here. I appreciate you for having me, man. I have a lot of fun always talking sports with you. Hopefully I can come out here more in the future. So
definitely
subscribe to Woodward Pistons, man. Hit the subscribe button. Support my guy, Brandon.
Hey,
don't forget Morning Woodward Show too. He's a part
of
the program now, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekdays on the Woodward Sports Network.
Hey, you guys know every week I tell you guys, tap into the Morning Woodward Show. He, Sam, the whole crew, they're doing great work. Hey, JB, get better, man. Shout out to KG, the new guy.
Yep. And by the way, I want to break this live on this podcast only. If you're still listening, you get this nugget. I got a podcast coming out. All right. Podcast coming out.
Support my guy
with a special somebody here at Woodward Sports and a couple people from Woodward Sports. I'm telling you, we're doing some big things. Stay tuned for that. If you listened this far, you got that nugget. If you didn't, I guess you didn't. You missed out. So sorry.
Hey, support my
guy.
Stay
tuned for that though. Seriously,
yes, sir. And the legend Rod Beard, he will be back next week.
The legend
on the podcast, and I think he has some things to say as well about where the Pistons are headed. So I can't wait for that, man. But thank you guys for tapping into the Woodward Pistons podcast on the Woodward Sports Network. Soon after Lions season, I'm gonna get this back banner changed. We got the Pistons one right over there in the other corner, but they just haven't motivated me, bro. I don't even feel like changing it out. They haven't motivated me. The Lions, man, they've been winning. Shout out to them. We got Lions coverage. Make sure you guys continue to support the pregame show on Woodward Sports. This guy, Jeff Iafrate, has held it down
Thank you, brother.
all season. And we also got the post game hosted by Stick, Maz, and Anson. It's been a great year, man, for Lions coverage, and hopefully the Pistons can give us something, bro. At least something, some type of hope, some type of whatever by the deadline, because the only wins we got right now is just the hope of what this team can do moving forward as it relates to acquisitions, trades, signings, and whatever. That's it now. That's it. There's not even like, even if this team found a way to string together some wins, if it's not with new players, if it's not with it, it doesn't matter, man. It really just does not matter. So thank you guys for tapping in, man. Appreciate you guys always. Support my people. I appreciate you guys as always. I know it's going to be probably a rack of comments in here already. It's been over 150 comments, man, like the last 3 or 4 podcasts. So I appreciate you guys for tapping in. Even if we don't agree, just keep it respectful. You guys already know.
Hate it, love it, don't care, comment.
Hey, look, you already know, man. Until next time, you all.